Hiya, it's Leah here, and I'm finally back with some book reviews. Been I won't say lazy. I've been very busy with other stuff, mostly work, so I haven't really had the chance to sit down and film. Also, it's very warm right now, too warm, so I also like didn't feel like sitting here and like half sweating and filming. So yeah, but I'm back. I have three books. There's one there. Imagine to talk about. Three books that I read early this year, maybe last year, not sure anymore. So yeah, let's get right into it. The first one is Untold Night and Day by Bei Suah. Suah. I'm not sure how to pronounce it correctly. Really cool little story. It's very hard to describe. So basically, imagine if you dream and it's like a crazy dream, almost maybe like a fever dream, and then you would exactly write down step for step what is happening. Um, that would be this book, sort of. So this starts in a theater or cinema of sorts that our protagonist she works there, and it's the last show before closing. And so we start there, but like very early on, like this dreamish stuff starts happening, and like suddenly we're somewhere else, we're outside the cinema looking in or something like that, and then a person comes at the door and knocking, and then we're back with the protagonist, and it's really trippy. I can't say really a different word than that, but it's a very interesting, cool story. Also for me, I think it's been like, yeah, it's probably the first like surreal kind of novel that I read that just didn't really make sense. In places it was hard to follow what was actually happening, and I had to reread certain parts, like because it's like I understand the English, but I have no idea what's happening. So that can be frustrating, but in the end, because it's such a short little story, it doesn't overstay its welcome. So, and I was really intrigued, because it's also like trying to not be spoiler here, but it's also like this part where like people think about other people, but towards the end, maybe several people are one person. I just want to say it like that, and it's like really like it really gets you thinking, and in order to try and figure it out. Really crazy story. So after the theater or cinema had its last show, we basically follow through the night. That's why I guess it's called Untold Night and Day, until it becomes day again, and a lot of crazy stuff happens. And again, you don't know how much actually happens. Does any of this actually happen, or is it in someone's head? Or yeah, very interesting little book. Very yeah, I would actually recommend it, just because it is such a different experience from like reading a regular story, if you will. So that's Until Night and Day by Bei Shua, I hope. uh, the other book that I have on hand here is Stories of Your Life and Others by Chiang. Some of you may have heard of Stories of Your Life. It's the base for the movie Arrival. If you've seen that movie, then basically that's the base story here. However, Stories of Your Life is, yeah, I mean, it's not different, but there are differences. Obviously, there's always differences in adaptation, and that's fine. Personally, as so ever often, I prefer the book. It's also there's thing in these books that when I read it, I'm like, how do they do that in a visual medium? Because this is one of the stories that you need to read in order for it to work, in my opinion. However, so credit to the movie makers, they actually did quite a good job. Although I feel like if I hadn't had read the story, I wouldn't have understood it as well by just watching the movie. And I don't want to say exactly what it is, because it's actually it's about, it has to do with the big spoiler of the story itself. So I can't exactly elaborate on what I mean by that. But if you know, if you have read it, it's about the big reveal in the end. And yeah, and so there is, however, as it says, and other stories. So this is a book, a collection of short stories by Chiang. And oh my god, like it's not just stories of your life, but there is like other short stories in here, and in particular two others in here that I have reread, I think like 4 times already, because they're also so short. So like of course, that makes it really well for rereading. They're all like somehow sci-fi-ish, maybe slight fantasy in some points, but more sci-fi, but very grounded, like with real science, or with science trying to back it up. And yeah, and it's so good. I'm actually very considering buying uh the other short stories collection by Chiang. Don't right now recall what that one's called. Something with E. But anyhow, this one, very cool. Loved it. Can highly recommend. I don't think there's a bad short story in here, even though I've reread only some of them. Like, all of them are good, but some of them are just phenomenal. And it's not just Stories of Your Life. Stories of Your Life is awesome, absolutely. And like I said, if you only watch the movie and you feel like you didn't maybe fully grasp it, this one will explain. So yeah, can't recommend more. It's such a cool thing. And if you like sci-fi and yeah, different sciences that maybe technically could work and even in the real world, then this is for you. And the third book that I unfortunately don't have on hand, I think it's downstairs in my basement. But anyhow, I still wanted to do the video, is Ursula K. Le Guin, Left Hand of Darkness. Funny story about this book. I actually read it because it was mentioned in a movie that I like. It's the Jane Austen book club. I know that's also a book. I actually haven't read the book. Here I only watched the movie. I didn't even know it was a book. But it was a movie with Jane Austen in the title. Of course I watched it. So anyhow, in that movie, one of the guys, or the male person, there's a book club of mostly women, and then there's one guy, and he recommends to his love interest to read Left Hand of Darkness. And I was like, huh, sci-fi that the guy recommends to a girl. That sounds interesting. Let's read it. So I bought Ursula K. Le Guin, Left Hand of Darkness, and it was very interesting. I started off having a hard, not a hard time, but like I wasn't immediately hooked, to be very honest. I wasn't instantly hooked. I was like, oh, it's a bit slow, and what exactly is the point? So it's a lot about like space travel, and in this world by Ursula K. Le Guin, she made different worlds. This one is, I think, called the Hainish Cycle. And in the Hainish Cycle, there's a lot of focus at space travel. It's not just instantly like we see in Star Wars, that when you travel through light speed and it takes you 1 hour, and all the people on the planet also experience 1 hour, but it's very different. If you go through light speed, for you it is an hour in the spaceship, but on the different planets, like years could pass. So it's a very different kind of way to look at space travel, and I really enjoyed that part. But then, like, the book starts, we're already landed. We hear him think a lot about, yeah, like he can't really return, or even if he would return to his home planet, everyone he knew would either be very old, or, and that's amazingly interesting. And it's like, and he's an ambassador, so like that's what he does. Like, he goes to different planets and they try to have, like, say the Republic in Star Wars, but in a good way, like asking, hey, do you want to join us? But this particular planet that he lands on, so they're not in the thing, but they don't have space travel yet at all, so they're of course a little bit surprised when suddenly aliens basically land. And then it's also very interesting, it's humanoid creatures in on that planet that the story takes place, but they're different from, they don't have a gender. And when it's time for them to mate, and the two people that meet, they basically that's when their genders develop in, so that they can mate, and either of them can be the or can get the female genitals or the male ones. It's very interesting. I actually really like, it was a little bit huh in the beginning, but the more I think about it, it was I thought it was a quite a genius idea. Because so often we have like aliens, in the end they're just like humans with blue skin slapped on and weird ears or weird hair or whatever, but otherwise it's the same. And this was like, they look humanoid, but actually they're quite different. And also like when they have their cycles, like they go through lots of emotional things. And for example, the king, like they still identify as king and queens, and the king was like, he wanted to be pregnant so badly, so like he wanted to wait until when the cycles happened that he gets the female, so because he wanted to be the one being pregnant. And it's just like all these kind of things was so interesting. The more I got into that, like then the more I got into the story. So in the beginning it was a little bit slow to me, and I wasn't exactly like fully hooked, but the more I read about it, the more I was interested in it. And then also a lot of, like, it's not just political or race talk, then it's also a lot of action, because of course the people on this planet, they're not just like, oh, an ambassador from space, let's just all be happy dappy. There's a lot of like intrigue and worry and scared, and so there's a lot of action in the end happening too. And especially the last bit, I cried. I actually did. I shed a tear or two at the very end, because oh my god, they go through so much, and then the ending is just bittersweet, gut wrenching, but so good. Yes, so I might try to insert at least the picture of the book so you have it in the video. But oh my god, so good. Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Guin. Can highly recommend. Don't give up if you have a similar experience to me in the beginning. It's absolutely worth it. It's such a good book. And yeah, so that's 3 books that I read. I'm kind of through. So the books behind me are like those that I read most recently, and I'm kind of through it right now. So going forward, there will be reviews of things I'm reading. So the videos will be less frequent. I guess maybe like now-ish. It took me like 1.5 weeks, because again, I don't just want to talk about one book. I will always wait for two, and depending how big books I'm reading, so it can go faster or slower. So, but that's what I want to do. That's what I enjoy. So I will keep doing it. I will keep bringing out videos. So even if there's a break there in between, they will come, because I'm enjoying it. I love talking about stories, even if I can't spoil it. But just like you, like now, just also remembering Left Hand of Darkness, it just makes me, oh, I want to reread it. Actually, it's such a good book. And lastly, I have a mic. I don't know how it is. This is my first filming with the mic. I should have tested it probably. Maybe I have to redo the whole video. Oh boy. Uh, but anyway, I have a mic now, so I hope that the audio is better. I didn't think it was terrible before, but like I did notice sometimes like it captures noise from outside and things like that. So now I hope it's really focused on my voice, and yeah, and very clear voice for you to understand, hopefully. But that's all from me. Today is also actually midsummer here in Sweden, so happy midsummer, and I'll see you next time. Bye.